Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbo. I just realized I didn't turn on my backlight, so I'll do that in a second. With me, as always, Robert Hagan, man. What's going on?
Dude, let me tell you, you and I talked just a few minutes. I feel like I am running everywhere since having the new title of head coach.
Yeah.
2 practices in, and I am just, it has been wore out trying to get things done in just 2 days.
That's what I feel like right now.
We
Got
got
forgetting something.
Yeah, got football game in 2 weeks from tomorrow, so it's just like, wow, it is here.
It's like we had our fun during the summer, and we are still at our own homes doing the summer version. I did talk to the new head of the radio station yesterday. I actually have a class with him, and we kind of talked about things for a couple minutes, but things aren't quite ready for us to go back in there yet. Things aren't set up. I don't know if my key even still works. Maybe I'll double check with him on that tomorrow. We'll see that. So we might be back next week at the station. It might be 2 weeks from now. But either way, we're going to have some fun with it. We got lots to talk about. Like you said, it's the busy time. Absolutely busy time as you're getting ready for some middle school football action. I've been working with the Lewiston Tribune, getting all of the high school preview or football previews ready for their big section. As Pete Alonso fell over, that was weird. Okay. Fun times. Watching the Yankees and Mets right now, that's always a good time. But we're getting that stuff ready. My junior year started yesterday. Chase's final junior high year will start tomorrow, and Adeline starts kindergarten tomorrow. She's only slightly excited about it. It's crazy times.
Well, and that's the thing. I thought about this earlier. I'm starting year 16 as at middle school, so I'm now 19 years at the middle school. If you include the time I spent as a student, but Alila starting first grade. Is she? Yeah, yes and no. Excited, so it'll be interesting as things kick off here in the valley. So, God. Where does the summer go? That's what I want to know.
It goes away. Whether you do stuff or not, it just goes away. And of course, Alonso scores on that play. What a weird game. We'll get to the scores here in just a second. On today's show, we will be breaking down both the AFC and NFC East. LCSC Volleyball got their season underway pretty successfully, I'd say, in California. Again, it's the first weekend of Idaho football. Well, in the area, some southern Idaho teams. Coeur d'Alene even had their first games last week. It was kind of a week 0 situation up there. So we will get into all of that. Aussie Rules football regular season is over, and it ended in ridiculous fashion. Whether you know about that sport or not, hang out to the end of the show and let us tell you all about it. Our buddy Eric Watkins, who I need to get a hold of and see if he is still breathing, had a wild one as his team was battling for one of the playoff spots. NASCAR is coming down to the regular season. Our sports-related draft picked by me because, hey, Madden is out now, even though I don't really play that junk anymore because Madden's been horrible for years. I've heard it's only bad this year. It's not god-awful. It's just bad.
I haven't bought it in 2 years, so it might be time to buy this year. Who knows?
Probably, I don't know. I probably still won't. I'll wait for it to hit Game Pass or something silly and try it for a week. Oh, there, Eric's here. He did survive. That's good. Hopefully he'll stick around and tell us all about his wild night. He was cussing at me throughout the entire night, and then both of us realized, oh, well, you're not going to make it anyways. So I stopped paying attention. I don't know about him. And then when I saw the final score, I was shocked. So we'll get to that. Let's get to other scores. Let's get to the Major League scoreboard right now. Is already in the books. Game 1 of a doubleheader. The Cubs upset the Cardinals 2-0 in that first one. Right now, Cardinals are up 1-0 in the 4th inning of game number 2. Yankees and Mets are squared off at 2 now in the top of the 6th inning. Reds and Phillies tied at 3 in the bottom of the 6th. Braves all over the Pirates 6-1 in the bottom of the 8th. Orioles holding on to a 3-2 lead. All 5 of those runs scored in the 1st inning. In the bottom of the 6th, we got Robert Taylor here Yes, Triple H is a Booker god. Maybe we have to talk about that. It's so good. Raw was really good last night, but it's been good lately. Bottom of the seventh, Giants over the Tigers 3-0. Rays over the Angels 3-1 in the seventh. Blue Jays and Red Sox tied at 1 in the third. Scoreless in Kansas City between the Diamondbacks and Royals in the fourth inning. Astros won Twins 0 through 3. Rangers 3, Rockies 0, bottom of the second. And still to start, Guardians, Padres, Marlins, Athletics, Nationals, Mariners. If the Mariners lose to the Nationals, oof. And the Brewers and the Dodgers, which will be a fun nightcap for me to watch when we're done here. Any of those scores really jump out to you?
Listen, if we lose to the Nationals after losing 2 of 3 from the A's, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. No, actually,
it is still kind of weird how close Robert and I kind of look. If you squint, I've met that guy. He's a little shorter.
No, I think the only one that still stands out to me, probably score wise, is how the Orioles are holding on. They got 1 game lead. If you look at that with Washington leaving 3-2, bottom of 6, so it'll be interesting how do they finish up against the White Sox. But and I know it's early, but the Royals still are being no hit, so I mean that's okay.
Oh, remind me of Gargano. I don't know about that. But it was great to see him come back. Even though the shot they had when he first came back, the crowd, for the most part, went, eh. And that kind of made me sad. Let's get into some more baseball. And you can't talk baseball without injuries. Sad news came out of Los Angeles. Walker Buehler is going to have his second Tommy John surgery. So obviously we knew he wasn't going to pitch the rest of this year. He's not going to pitch all of next year either. Walker Buehler's good.
Mm-hmm. He is really good. And, we kind of touched on it a little bit last week. They weren't 100% until they got in there. And to see this guy's season come to a screeching halt, and even next season, it's going to be tough.
Have you seen this yet? Have you seen the man drinking a beer from a hot dog yet?
No, I have not seen this. Where did we see this at?
Go ahead and talk about Michael Kopech. I'm going to see if I can pull it up and get us in trouble with some kind of a copyright thing.
There you go. So other injury news, Chicago White Sox, Michael Kopech was lifted from his start on Monday as he faced just 4 batters through 19 pitches. And you could see he had some discomfort and in the left knee. He even saw that in the in his first warm-ups. You could see the discomfort, and he tried to do it, gave up a home run, a single, and walked a guy too. So not what Chicago was needing, especially with them trying to push their way to getting being there in the playoffs. He needs to make it there, but it'll be interesting to see how long he's out. Looking to about 3 to 4 weeks on him right now. So.
All right. You ready for this?
All right.
I need honest opinion. Here we go. He drills a hole into the hot dog and turns it into a straw, and then uses his new straw hot dog to drink his beer.
Oh my God. That is just not even right. I don't even think I want to know what game, what stadium.
It was a Yankees-Mets game.
Oh my God.
It was yesterday.
That is just not.
Are you saying you don't want to try it for the show?
No, that's just gross. That's like certain people talking about having their food touch. Yes, I'm one of those ones that it doesn't matter if my food touches on the plate, but what the heck? Why? How can you take a food item and make it a straw?
I believe it was John Boy that says that he needs to be banned.
That is just not right at all. Oh my Lord.
It's not okay. I don't think that's a thing that I would be into. Maybe we'll have to have a bet that you lose so we can have you try it out.
That is just gross.
So we're getting closer to these rule changes. They're testing things out. They did it in a AAA game on Saturday between the Syracuse Mets and the Charlotte Knights. Game only lasted 2 hours and 17 minutes, so that's a positive, right?
Yeah, I think so. It was cool to see some of the stuff as MLB Network was there watching the game and going through it. So lots of great things. I think the biggest one out of all of them will be the ABS challenge with some of the. I know the umpire, the managers or anybody from the dugout can't make the call. I think that's going to be the biggest part out of it. So let's talk a little bit about it. So the
Yes.
first one, we'll do the easy one first. I think it's a no-brainer. I love the idea of the base being 3 inches bigger, safety reasons.
Yeah.
That adding 3 extra inches around the bag just gives a little bit easier way for the first baseman not to get tripped up on, and also the runner to give him a little bit more space. So I love that change there.
Yeah, those that are talking about, oh, it's going to make it easier to steal a base. I mean, it's going to obviously make the bases slightly closer. So in a way, yes, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. Denny Grubb is here too. I'm loving it. We got all the people in today.
The other one, I love the timed rule. It looked like everything was going quite well, the pitch timer. So pitcher's got and batter has 30 seconds in between batters once they're out. And between pitches, you got 14 seconds with empty bases, 19 seconds with runners on. I don't understand why we didn't just say 15 and 20. Why 14 and 19? I don't understand.
It's things that they have mathematically figured out.
Yeah. But I think the biggest one with that one has to be you're only able to step off the rubber twice during a bat. So out of a batter. So the pitcher's only able to come off the rubber
It's
times.
never, ever going to be enforced.
Yeah,
the batter was never the batter. There was a rule a couple years ago where the batter wasn't supposed to leave the box. There's a couple arguments here and there, and then after like a year or two, it just disappeared.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be quite interesting to see how stringent they are on that. And I think the last one is the ABS challenge. The automatic, umpire still going to have the guy calling balls and strikes behind the plate, but they have a chance to appeal. It's going to be ugly. I think the biggest thing for me is, we adjust the height for each player, and I did put example with the strike zone. And you look, I think I don't understand how these umpires are going to have to keep playing with the idea of how far you got to judge. Well, this guy stands 6'2", so
that they need to. It's supposed to be from a certain part of the body to another part of the body. So, as a Yankee fan, we see that with Aaron. I mean, you have it as an example in our notes, but Aaron Judge has been called on low strikes his whole career.
So from the idea of what it is so the top of the zone is supposed to be the 51% of the body from the feet up. So just above the letters or right at the letters. But then for the bottom is the bottom 27%. So why don't they just say the bottom quarter? I mean, so
what
you
happened put it in to just knees
exactly.
to letters?
Why I don't understand that. It makes no sense.
Are jerseys now going to come out with lines?
They're coming out with advertisement. Might as well put some lines on there for guidance. Because you look,
we just need to go robo. I mean, if we're going to go down to this road of percentages, you have to go robo at this point, because no umpire is going to look at a dude and go, okay, his 22 percentile portion of his body usually supposed to be knees, but he's got little chubby legs, so actually it's like middle thigh. Like, no umpire is going to understand this. And I was looking this up while you're talking, because I remember just seeing this on Twitter the other day. But a Twitter account called Umpire Auditor has went through and looked, and just in the past week, according to their math, whether you believe it or not, just in 1 week, how many balls and strike calls do you think umpires missed?
It'd be hard to. You figure what 3, 6, 32. I would say probably 12 to 15%.
Well, I don't know about percentage. They blew over 1,000 calls in
Wow.
1 week, including 64 strikeouts that were not strikeouts and 28 walks that were not walks,
Wow.
according to umpire auditor. All right,
Yeah.
Robert will be back. He's going to hear. Hopefully, he's going to make fun of my Jets. I know that.
No, but it's funny to have the idea of, they in the article they talk about comparing Jose Altuve to Aaron Judge. Altuve's strike zone starts a foot and a half off the ground to just short of 3 feet from the ground. So I mean, and then like you said, you look at Aaron Judge, his starts almost 2 feet from the ground to, or I'm sorry, yeah, from just at 2 feet up to 3.5 feet, basically. So how do you determine all of that? It's going to be interesting to see how it. But I'm like you. If you're going to go ABS, let's just go automate all the way.
Absolutely. Like, I get it with tennis because it's kind of, they've done a really cool thing with it. So when somebody does challenge, they have this whole screen thing. I'm curious if Major League Baseball is going to do that same thing where you see the pitch come in and then the whole thing pops up. Well, as long as it's fast as tennis or Aussie rules, then I'm okay with it, and I'm glad that they're testing it out in the minors and stuff. But it's like, just why don't we just go all in with it? I mean, even tennis for the most part has went just straight robo umps. They just have them sounding like humans when they call things out. So it's the same thing.
Yep.
All right, let's look at the previous weekend. As again, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the regular season. We still have some really good playoff races in there. Some that might be getting close. We'll see. But your American League main series that happened this weekend, Toronto did take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. Yankees survived the sweep on Sunday and then got their first 2-game winning streak of the entire month of August with their win yesterday against the Mets. That's sad. But they're still up 8 games and they can't win back-to-back games for over a month. Baltimore took 2 out of 3 from Boston. So Denny, I'm sure, was happy about that. Tampa Bay took 2 out of 3 against Kansas City. So a lot of teams gaining a game on the Yankees there. Cleveland and the White Sox split a 2-game set because their game on Sunday was postponed to the middle of September. Minnesota struggling. They lost 3 of 4 to Texas, who's kind of been heating up a little bit lately. They're nowhere near making the playoffs or anything, but I think that is a sneaky team that you don't want to play in September. Houston lost 2-3 in Atlanta in a really good series. And like you said, Seattle losing 2 of 3 to Oakland. So out of those, just kind of pick a series or two that really stood out to you.
For me, it was what Tampa Bay did. I think I was doubting them, and I said it there a couple weeks ago. I said I don't like their chances. I like the idea of Baltimore getting over the top and making it into the playoffs there, and kind of shocked that Tampa Bay was able to handle things in Kansas City. And the other one, and we talked about that as a matchup last week, was Houston and Atlanta. I mean, you got the number 1 team there and Atlanta fighting to get in. So, I mean, that's a tough one. Good for the AL West if Seattle would have taken care of business against Oakland, even though we are still, so many games out of first place against Oakland.
All right, so there's 2 things that have just happened. I just looked at a score update, and they're not out of the top of the third yet. And now they are. Now that they just got it out, the third out as I'm talking. Boston was leading 1-0, right?
Okay.
Toronto's now up 8-1. They put up 8 runs there in the top of the third. Meanwhile, I watched Gleyber Torres delay steal twice from second to third. Finally took off for third. And speaking of robo umps, Josh Donaldson gets away with one, a 2-2 pitch, lower part of the strike zone. It was a strike, in my opinion. Called the ball. Yeah. So there you go. Yankees, see if the Yankees can take advantage of it here. But yeah, I mean, for me, obviously, Baltimore hanging in there, taking 2 or 3 from Boston. Boston's just hanging on right now, trying to stay playoff relevant. Minnesota, to me, I think that's the big one. A 3-way race for that division. And wild card is still a possibility, but really only one of those 3 teams is getting in there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you drop 3 or 4 to Texas, a team that's out of it, even though like I said, I think they're a scary team and one of those spoiler teams you don't want to play. You can't be doing that right now with Minnesota or with Cleveland and Chicago right now all around you. You look
Mm-hmm.
at those playoff standings right now. But Tampa Bay did gain 2 games on the Yankees. They are now within 8 games. AL West, still a 12-game lead. Again, I think that one's over. Mariners are putting up a good fight as far as the wild card goes, but Houston is just too good. The Central is going to be a lot of fun. Guardians right now up 2 games over Minnesota and Chicago. So we'll see where those go. And then the wild card is still just wild. So Tampa Bay is up a half a game over Toronto and Seattle, who are in a virtual tie. Mariners have played 2 extra games and split both of those. So a virtual tie there. Then you have Baltimore 2.5 back, Minnesota 3 back, Chicago 4 back, and still Boston hanging out there at 6 back. All of those teams could make the playoffs, could miss the playoffs. I think other than probably Boston, all of those teams could host the playoff series. It's a mess as far as the wild card goes.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Didn't you said one team, and especially the way they've been playing. How many we got? 40 games left. Could Texas sneak up there, even being 10 games back?
No, it's too late. It's too late for them. But I think how they finish in September will help them next year because they did spend a lot of money and then they fired their coach. So, I mean, they are focused on next year and the free agents that they got. And they still got to be able to kind of swoon some more people over there and become more of a threat. The Angels completely imploding definitely helps Texas's case for next year. Is now the Angels have fallen off so bad that they're looking to sell the team. So it's a mess over there. National League, the Mets took 3 of 4 from Philadelphia, which basically just took Philadelphia completely out of that division race. Atlanta again took 2 of 3 of Houston. St. Louis sweeps a 3-game set against Arizona, taking care of business. Dodgers also sweep their series. They took on Miami. And Milwaukee losing 2 of 3 from the Cubs. Yes, the Cubs beat the Cardinals earlier today, but you can't have that. San Diego split a 4-game set with Washington, one of, if not the worst teams in the league right now. But San Francisco loses 2 of 3 to Colorado. So none of the wildcard teams really helped their case. But you look at the playoff standings right now. The Dodgers lead by 17.5 games. I say this every week. Remember when we joked about them winning by 10 games and said there's no chance? They could win by 20. Mets, their lead is down to just 3 games. The Braves gained a game and a half of them since the last time we talked. Cardinals have extended their lead to 4.5. They had won 8 straight before their first game today. And then on the wild card, the Braves are in, whether they win the division or not. They're up 8 games over Philadelphia. Philadelphia and San Diego tied for that last wild card spot, a game and a half ahead of Milwaukee and 6.5 ahead of San Francisco. So not as crazy in the National League, but nothing is really decided wild card wise minus Atlanta. And it'll be either Atlanta or the Mets hosting that wild card matchup in the playoffs.
Yeah, and for me, it's got to be the Brewers. I'm very shocked. Just 5-5 over the last 10 games for a team that we thought, and I thought was going to be a little bit stronger in that division. Could the Cardinals keep things going, throttle down, and just run away with that division and bounce the Brewers out of even having a sniff to get into that place? I think that's the biggest thing. And all hail. What about the machine? Dude, that guy has gotten hot over the last couple of games.
Yeah, we'll talk about him.
So
we'll talk about him here shortly. Brewers in that tough series with the Dodgers. They do win yesterday, but they get Gonsolin today in his 15-1 record and 2.12 ERA. So, I mean, they got Corbin Burns on the mound. It's going to be a great matchup that starts here in about 40 minutes, but it's definitely a tough ask there. All right, let's get into our power rankings. And again, for the most part, people have separated themselves out enough. We have groupings now, right? The Dodgers are in their own group, right?
Right.
They're all by themselves. I would say the Mets and the Astros are in that next tier. And then the tier under that is Atlanta, the Yankees, the Cardinals. I think that's it
Yeah,
right now. And then after that, it's Toronto, Tampa Bay, Baltimore, Seattle, Philadelphia, San Diego. All the other playoff hopefuls are kind of all mushed together. And then the bottom feeders. Do we agree or disagree with that?
Well, I'm 100% on board with that. I mean, the only reason I think you and I are different this week is, again, the skid that your team has been on. I did not change my. I was actually the exact same in my top 5 than I was last week. It's just
me too.
So nothing changed. The Dodgers are just proving to be the team you have to go through to if you want a chance of winning the World Series, and that.
Oh yeah.
That is bottom line right now. As far as the Yankees and Astros, I think that's going to where it's going to boil down to, unless one of these teams get lucky and catch fire, like Atlanta beating Houston this week. I mean,
or just Atlanta last year.
Yeah.
Atlanta was nowhere near our top 10 for most of last year. They got hot in September, rode that hot streak all the way into the playoffs, and won the World Series. That's why we talked through this whole thing about the Yankees were on this historic pace. It's like, but it's still June. It's like, well, as a Yankee fan, I'm having fun with it, but it doesn't mean anything come October. Same thing with their downturn right now. It's not October yet, so right now it doesn't matter. It's just whether they get hot or not. Some of these wild card teams, one or two of them have to get hot just to make the playoffs, and then they become the team that you just don't want to play. Now, whether it's Baltimore or Seattle or Tampa Bay or Toronto, we don't know yet. We got a month more to figure this out, but it's a mess. And anybody that goes, "Oh, the World Series is locked," have you watched baseball before? And even though, I mean, it's the hottest team going into the playoffs that wins the World Series, not the best team.
Exactly. And you look at, especially as much as we have been down on Washington, look what they did to the Padres this week. I mean, we say with football any given Sunday, but I mean, it could be any given couple day run. I mean, who would have thought about, honestly, and you know how high I've been on your Yankees this year, who would have thought they would have gone through a skid that they have since the All-Star break? Not I.
Especially the month of August has just been brutal. Nothing has gone right, but that just shows how many of those games you go back, 1-run games. They were winning them in June. They're not winning them now. All the teams go through it. And the difference between the NFL and Major League Baseball is, any given Sunday for football, but the worst team in baseball is going to win at least 50 games. And it's not like they're only playing against the bottom feeders to get those 50 games. They're going to beat good teams to do it. Same thing with the best teams. The Dodgers are the best team. They're going to lose 50 games. So, I mean, it all kind of boils down, and we all are going through the long haul. Obviously, you have to have the hot takes, and you get excited for moments, but this stuff takes a while to kind of figure it out. All right, let's get to our players of the week. And you had mentioned them, the machine, Albert Pujols. Please don't retire. He's been talking. He says he's done after this year. I don't want him to be, especially with how red hot he is, with the fact that he is back in St. Louis and they have the designated hitter now. Just be the glorified extra hitter sometimes. Just come out there every so often and get some more hits. I want to see how far he can get. But what a ridiculous week. Ridiculous 2 weeks, really, that he has had. But in the last week, 9 of 15. So batting 600, has 8 RBIs, 4 home runs in that span. And now puts him up to 693 home runs all time. Just 3 behind the much beloved Alex Rodriguez. For 4th all time, he's 69 home runs behind Barry Bonds for the most all time. Obviously, he's not going to catch him. But we have to, at this point, believe he's going to pass Alex Rodriguez, right?
Oh, you have to, 100%. But I think the biggest thing for him, and you say it right, I would love to see him keep going at the age he is. Wouldn't you love to be Brendan Donovan sitting next to him and listening to things? Even Paul Goldschmidt, who Paul Goldschmidt, you could throw his name in there for NL MVP.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you love to sit next to a guy that could be hence hitting coach / player coaching you up with the style and doing things? I mean, if you were anybody on that team, I would be chewing it in his ear every day. Okay, what do I got to do? I mean, to have a role model like that in there,
Yeah.
I think would be unbelievable.
To me, the card are like, obviously I'm one of those people that you pick one team, you stick with one team, and that's
Mhm.
your team. But I'm rooting for the Cardinals to win it all this year.
Mhm.
If it's not the Yankees, that's who I want. It's because it's Pujols' last year, it's Adam Wainwright's last year. You gotta think it's Yadi Molina's last year, right?
Yeah.
At this point, the amount of service that those three themselves have had. Goldie is no spring chicken. He's been around for a long time. That team is just a bunch of old vets having a good time, just goofing off the whole time. I mean, you hear Adam Wainwright on like one of the Fox games during one of his interviews and just kind of talking stories. It's like the only thing they were missing is they needed Joey Votto on that team. And Joey Votto is going to have surgery. He's out for the rest of the year, which is sad. But the fact that he's been stuck in Cincinnati his whole career. But St. Louis is really cool for the like that. Not the old generation, but compared to the players now, this is the old generation team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's would be crazy for him to step away. So, with that being said, I'm going to stay on that same team. Give me Paul Goldschmidt for my player of the week. 13 to 24, 7 runs scored, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, being the guy just driving in runs, but slugging 1.042. I mean, he's putting the bat on the ball, and like you said, I think this year for this team, it's a win or it's a failure kind of season that these guys are having, especially with Yachty, who is probably one of the best catchers to play the game.
And don't forget Nolan Arenado now on that team. He homered in this game. That Cardinals now lead the Cubs 5-0 in the 5th. So just that team's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that team, you got a fun series this weekend.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think it's going to come down to this team. I like to see Atlanta. Atlanta's going to travel into St. Louis. You know, Atlanta's trying to. I'm like you. I think they have the number 1 wild card locked up. Don't know if the Mets are going to fall off a little bit, but I think they've got a playoff in. But you know, you're going to see the Braves, Acuna take up. But yeah, I agree, Denny. You look at the entire week. There's a.
He was talking about Arenado having a good week.
Oh, yeah.
The whole Cardinals had a ridiculous week. We'll just say that. My series, and Denny, I'm sure will agree with me, and Baltimore Orioles and the Houston Astros. How real is Baltimore? They, again, the fact that they continue to win, even though they sold at the deadline, they wanted to stick to their plan, and they just keep winning. Now you get Trey Mancini playing his old team, but not at Baltimore, so you don't get the cool standing ovation and stuff. But I think that's going to be a really interesting series, especially the way playoffs go. I mean, yes, the way the Yankees are playing, they don't deserve home field advantage, but they're, 3.5 games behind Houston for that, so there's a lot to play for there. Baltimore is in this ridiculous battle for the wild card. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. You also, I think, Tampa Bay and Boston is a series that's coming up. Yeah, I think that one could be pretty fun too. There's not a ton of big series, but we have enough teams that are battling for playoff spots that we have a lot of series that have a lot to do with playoff position.
100%, because you look just in this week alone.
Denny has not a lot of confidence, so he only believes that they're going to win 2 out of 3.
Listen, Houston lost 2 this week to Atlanta. Atlanta is probably a little bit more dominant, but you never know what happens. Who would have figured, Toronto doing what they're doing to the Red Sox? There is some good, decent games this week to watch. Could the Guardians go in and handle business against the Padres? I mean, could that be something to really focus on? Could the Reds be the team to disrupt Philadelphia a little bit? There are some decent games to watch over this week alone.
For sure. All right. Did you get me last week on Who Am I? I forget. You got me. You gave me that stupid Tecmo Super Bowl reference, and it was for the wrong player. That's what it was. It was the Kansas City running back I'd never heard of.
Anyway. Oh yes, remember? And you even got help from Mr. Denny Grubb, and you didn't know who it was.
I wasn't gonna cheat because literally when he sent me that message, I went, I don't know who that is. I'm not gonna pretend.
I'm surprised you didn't know who it was. So
I was like 8 when he was good, and I didn't play against Kansas City that often. I knew a lot of the players back in the Tecmo Super Bowl days, that's for sure, because I played that game a lot, but didn't play Kansas City a lot, apparently. All right. Give me the first part for this week.
All right, here we go. I was born in Puerto Rico. My mom was Dominican. My dad was Cuban, but fled to Puerto Rico to escape Fidel Castro's regime.
Danny Almonte.
Not quite there yet.
Oh, okay.
I could not get into a 4-year college because of my scores, but I was recruited by a community college in Alabama without being scouted. That's what you get this first.
I'm still sticking with my Danny Almonte pick, but I would have said he couldn't get into college because he was too old. All right. Those are your clues so far.
Those are your clues this one.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. We are halfway through our NFL division previews. We did the South first. We did the North. Or no, we did the West last week. Our division winners that we have so far is I have Indianapolis winning the AFC South. Robert, you have Tennessee. We both say Tampa Bay, even though I think we picked those before Tom Brady disappeared for a week. Now, do you have any changes there with that drama?
Man, I just feel so bad for that team right now with all of the offensive line issues. It's going to be a mess, and everybody the Tom Brady conspiracy of let the guy. I mean, he's 42 years old.
Is Tom Brady going to be on The Masked Singer? I love that rumor. I don't believe it, but I want it to be true. That he skipped out on the preseason to go film The Masked Singer. It'd be great. You have Kansas City winning the AFC West. I'm taking the Chargers just to be different. I don't have a lot of confidence in it. I do think the Chiefs are the best team in that division, but you got to have some surprises anywhere. Come on, no. He was on vacation while filming The Masked Singer. That's what he was doing. And we both have the defending Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams, winning the NFC West. Sorry, Seahawks fans. We both have you in dead last.
I'll put it out on record. I'll be lucky to see if they win 4 games.
That's not, I don't think it's going to be pretty for Seahawks fans. At all. At all. All right, let's get into it. AFC East, the division owned by the teams that defeat the New York Jets twice every year. Let's start with what the hell? How? Okay. Anyways, let's start with the Buffalo Bills. I literally saw 3 Mets players circling a baseball. I don't know what that was, but I don't know if whatever. Buffalo Bills 11-6 last year. Fox Sports Bets has their win-loss over/under at 11.5. Sean McDermott there now for their 6th season. They added Jamison Crowder from the Jets. They added O.J. Howard, the tight end from the Buccaneers. Kaiir Elam, the cornerback from Florida, was their first-round pick. James Cook, a decent running back from Georgia, back in the second round. They lose Beasley and Sanders, a couple wide receivers, but I don't think they're going to miss them too much. This is Buffalo's division, right?
No, it's 100% Buffalo's division. I think for me, I'm curious to see how the tight ends look. Between Knox, and he's gotten better over the last couple of years. I think what does Allen do? Josh Allen do with that tight end, and then how do you keep Devin Singletary involved with the offense with the passing game? I think Josh Allen. I got to thinking about this, and I haven't chatted with you about this because I know you, sir, are taking a year away from fantasy sports, but I would love to see. Would he be your number one pick as the quarterback. That's another subject. We'll talk about that offline, off air. But could you build? And I think this is a guy you build your offense around is Josh Allen. So I want to know how he's going to get those tight ends involved. He's got a great number one with Stephon Diggs. Jameson Crowder is going to look phenomenal with them. Sorry, he's not in the Jets anymore. I think he's going to do quite well this year.
I'm not sad that Jamison Crowder's not with the Jets. They've added some good pieces. We'll get to them in a second. But Crowder will be a good slot receiver, I think, for Buffalo. Have Davis and Diggs on the outside. I think they've really started to solidify this team. Defense is really, really good there. They were insanity away from defeating Kansas City in the playoffs. And then who knows if they beat Cincinnati or not in the AFC Championship game. But they're knocking on the doorstep for sure. Anybody that's ever heard me on the kickoff with Eric and Harry knows that I was completely wrong about Josh Allen. I didn't believe in him at all. I thought he was too inaccurate to be a top level quarterback. And you know what? Especially with getting Diggs, who can chase down some of his inaccuracies, and the fact that he's gotten more accurate has been a big deal. The fact that he has never had a good running game, minus himself. He is his best running game is Josh Allen. He has made some fantastic plays. He's a big game quarterback, and I have all the faith in him in the world now, and I'm fully bought in with him. I do think that they, like you said, they need to get Singletary and Cook going, but more on the running game. I think they need to be more balanced. I think they threw the ball like 65% of the time, and I think they need to kind of balance that out a little bit. This is definitely a Super Bowl contender. I have not sat down and figured out who I'm going to pick for those positions yet, but Buffalo's on a short list right now for the AFC, and the AFC stacked. But when we get to these other teams in this division, I think Buffalo has the easiest road to a division title in any of the AFC teams.
Yeah, 100%, because where the rest of this division is going, they have made strides. Let's get this correct with this, is the AFC East has made a lot of strides over the last year to get themselves better. I'm huge on seeing your Jets the way they did it. I'm a huge Saleh fan. I think he eventually will help turn that team around. Where does Wilson fit in the picture? We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I mean, I think this division has made strides. I still think the NFC East is the worst division in all of football, but
yeah, I still think the AFC South has a good threat to that, but the NFC East is pretty bad too. Let's go to the Miami Dolphins. They go 9-8 last year. Win-loss over-unders at 8.5, according to Fox Bets. Mike McDaniel there for his first season, and they added some firepower. Tyreek Hill from the Chiefs, Cedric Wilson from the Cowboys, Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, and Sony Michel. Completely just redo that whole running back situation. I haven't looked at the depth chart to see if they've all made the team because they've added a lot throughout the time. And don't forget Teron Armstead, the offensive tackle from the Saints. Oh, God. Eric's going to get banned from the show. I'll just go and put it up there. I'm not going to say it, but
Flacco will lose to the Ravens. Just saying.
Yes. I was on a roll. I was doing so well. The show was going so well. Miami lost Devontae Parker and Will Fuller. Will Fuller is so bad that he's nowhere. Suspended, I think. Damn you, Eric. All right, anyways. Your thoughts on Miami?
I think Miami will shock a few of you what's going to happen. Here's the thing. You look, like you said a minute ago, 1, 2, and 3, you got Edmonds, Mostert, Sony Michel, and Myles Gaskin. Those are your top 4 running backs with this crew. And you also look, Tyreek Hill, which for me, maybe I am missing something with Tyreek Hill because I haven't heard his name as much since the trade. And so maybe he's staying a little bit more low key.
Well, he has to be a little bit more low key because every time that man opens his mouth, I have to hear about it from Robert Taylor. Because every time Tyreek Hill opens his damn mouth, it's trying to say Tua is as good as Patrick Mahomes. And then Robert Taylor has to tell me about it. Like, I agree with the guy.
But
which I don't.
yeah, you look there. I think that's a great receiving core. You've got Hill, Waddle, Wilson. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a great core there. And even if we go the running back committee with Michelle, he'll get his third down touches. You get Edmonds and Moser. I mean, it's going to look like a decent team this year. You'll be shocked where I put them in my standings.
The Miami Dolphins to me have done possibly the best job of going, all right, quarterback, we've given you all of the weapons we possibly can. Now it's on you. We talked
Mhm.
about it a couple weeks ago with Jacksonville spending a lot of money on their wide receivers to try to help Trevor Lawrence. They also helped Trevor Lawrence by getting rid of Urban Meyer. We'll talk about the Jets and some of the additions they made. Other teams have kind of struggled at getting their young quarterback these weapons. But to me, Miami going out getting all this veteran help on top of Jalen Waddle, who did a great job last year, all of the different running backs, a lot of them can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. This is a do or die season for Tua, period. I don't believe in him, but with this much weapons, maybe he can prove me absolutely wrong. You look at the rest of this roster, defense is pretty good.
Mhm.
A lot of offensive weapons. As long as Tua is not turning the ball over, this could be a playoff team.
100% could be a playoff team, and that's the thing. I think as long as Tua can stay healthy and make the smart reads, make the smart play calls, and be able to learn from your first couple of years of mistakes. But with this weaponry, huge. It is
Mm-hmm.
huge.
All right, we go to the New England Patriots. They went 10-7 last year. Win loss over under from Fox Sports is 8.5. Bill Belichick's here for his 23rd year. There are people graduating college that have never seen anybody else coach this damn team. They added Devontae Parker from the Dolphins. The weird, well, the strange pick in the first round of Cole Strange, the guard from Tennessee, Chattanooga. The very Bill Belichick move there.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyquan Thornton, the wide receiver from Baylor in the second round. They do lose J.C. Jackson, the cornerback. He goes to the Chargers, and N'Keal Harry, pretty late on in the offseason, gets traded to the Bears. Your thoughts on this team?
I think this is going to be a team that I think is going to take a huge nosedive. I really do. And half of the reason you've got Damian Harris there, but who's your backup? Ty Montgomery for a running back. The other part is I'm going to give you two names. These are the only two names on defense that you will probably know, and that's Matthew Judon and Devin McCourty. Who is this defense? That's what it boils down to. Who is this defense, and could this be kind of like one of the things I saw? Could this be the worst defense that Bill Belichick has ever had in New England?
No. Just because they're not known, that this guy, Bill Belichick, is like Nick Saban to me. I am not going to bet against him until he proves me that I can. Like, are there huge names on defense? No, but there usually isn't. He makes names on defense. It's more of a scheme thing for the Patriots than anything else. And as far as the offense goes, you're talking about Ty Montgomery being the backup. Ramondre Stevenson is the guy that I think could break out for this team. As far as running backs go, I'm not saying, again, I'm not doing fantasy this year, but anybody playing fantasy, you never draft Patriot running backs because you just never know. But I think he has a great chance of jumping out again, getting Parker in there to try to help Mac Jones in his second year. I do like them getting Brian Hoyer to be the backup, just as a great mentorship there. The Patriots are always that team that don't do anything flashy. They don't do anything crazy in the offseason, and at the end, they're great. And we went, oh, it was Tom Brady. Well, they made the playoffs without Tom Brady last year, and they look okay. Do I think they're going to contend with Buffalo? Probably not. But I don't think they're going to have this giant nosedive this year. And one year I'm going to be wrong, and they're going to have a nosedive, and I'm going to celebrate, even though I got it wrong. We go to now my New York Jets. They went 4-13 last year, but beat the AFC champions. I still make fun of my son as much as possible But the Jets beat his Bengals. Win, loss, over-unders at 5.5. Like you said, Robert Saleh's second year. Added a bunch of tight ends in CJ Uzuma and Tyler Conklin. They added Laken Tomlinson, a guard from the 49ers. That was needed as Becton goes down. And then they went nutso in the draft. Anybody that did not watch our live reactions to that missed me losing my mind 3 times in the span of, 5 hours. Sauce Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Jermaine Johnson fell to them, and they traded up late in the first round. Defensive end from Florida State. And then they get Breece Hall in the second round from Iowa State. They had a ridiculous draft. And then, again, they do lose Jamison Crowder, but they're able to add enough pieces where I think it's an okay loss there. As far as me, I'll go first since this is my team. I'm hopeful that it's a positive season. The schedule sucks. We play the entire AFC North the first 4 games. There's not a easy game in like the first 10 weeks. All of the quote-unquote easier games against the weaker teams are in the back half of the season the Jets will not be playing for a playoff spot. That's nowhere in the question. I just, again, want to see them take that next step. And, of course, Zach Wilson then gets hurt. And then they're like, oh, Joe Flacco's our starter. And because of that, we're not going to have him play in the preseason because we got to keep him healthy. The Striver kid or whatever is doing well in the second half of these stupid preseason games, apparently. Hey, Jets are 2-0. I don't care. I'm not a Ravens fan. We don't care about preseason wins. But there's a lot of young talent. I think the offensive line is still not where it needs to be, but they keep adding pieces, hoping they can make it whole. Hopefully the running game can go. Yeah, the over-under is 5.5. Probably right about there, 5-6 wins.
Listen, you got to give your team a little bit more pride in because I think this team's going to surprise you this year. And then, yes, you were so excited for the sauce. I think that's going to help the defense there. But when you get Garrett Wilson, the Ohio State guy, but I think the biggest out of getting sauce has to be your round 2 pick of Breece Hall. To watch the highlights of Breece Hall and Tyler Lindenbaum, who went to the Baltimore Ravens as the center, I think it is going to be unbelievable. You look at how those two played together at the college level. I was excited to see Hall. I think he brings out something for Robert Saleh for these guys to really capitalize on. So when you have a weapon like Hall, the weapon like Gardner, I think it's going to be strong for your team this year. I'm going to jump on board here. I think this year and say that your team's going to finish a little bit more consistent, a little bit better than what you think.
I hope you're right, and I hope it starts with week 1 when they beat the Ravens.
No, right now we're on a 22-game win streak in the preseason.
Week 1's not the preseason, sir. Week 1's not the preseason.
Hey, I want to know how is that thing's going to look when Joe Flacco is coming and starting in Baltimore.
It's going to look great when he wins, and I can watch you cry when you show up to bowling, knowing that we're going to do the same thing to you in the bowling league.
Listen, we got to figure out if we're getting together to watch the game before, so.
Come on over. Let's go.
We'll have to.
But then I have to kick you out when you're up by 20. That's all I can take. Real quick. We don't need our biggest questions we've all kind of hit. So let's get to our standings predictions. For me, Buffalo's number 1. I'm going to keep New England number 2. Because, again, I will not predict their downfall until I finally see it. Because I'm not going to say that they're going to have a downfall every year and then just be wrong. I'd rather be wrong the one time they finally do. Miami is 3rd, though. I think they're going to be around the 500 mark. And again, the Jets, 5-6 wins, be in 4th place.
Yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer at the number 1 spot. It's Buffalo's team and what Allen can do for this team. But I'm going to shock you. I'm going to put Miami 2nd and move Miami up. I think they've got way too many weapons. I think they've got way too many weapons. I think they do it. And on the other hand, I think New England nosedives. I see your Jets move up to the 3 spot. Yes, I said it. I think this is the season Bill Belichick is done at the end. I don't see that defense being
it's
very good.
He's not tall enough.
I'm moving your Jets up to number 3 and beating Bill Belichick out in this division.
That would shock me. I would be a very happy Jets fan if that happened. Just to make fun of Mulcair for a year. That's all I ask. All right, let's move on to some local sports news. Again, as things start opening up more, and especially once we get back in the studio, our local sports section is going to get much bigger. We'll get the interviews back going. But we're just now starting to really get into these seasons. LC Volleyball got their season underway. They go 4-1 in their California trip. They drop 1 set to William and Jessup in their opener. They sweep Pacific, Union, and Simpson. They drop a set to Menlo. And then in the game, I actually got to watch the last couple sets in because UC Merced was nice enough to have a free stream on there. LC does lose in a tight 5-set match. They give up the first set, dominate the second set, give up set 3, win set 4, and then just kind of fell too far behind in set number 5 to get that one. You can look at your stat leaders through 5 games as they get ready for league play. It's a lot of known names and a couple of the new players that have you really excited. Gracia Enriquez leads the way with kills. She was injured to start last year and came up strong in the second half. She already has 52 kills in the 5 games. Cassidy Nelson, who was a big leader last year, is at 48. And Lisi Lange, who is a newcomer, the senior from Utah, also with 48. Esther Kelaponi has 89 assists, which leads the team, another newcomer. Jenna Carpenter, hometown girl, at 85 herself. Cassidy Nelson leads with 15 aces. Kenzie Dean doing her thing, leading with 60 digs. The second closest to her in that stat is at 26 right now for LC, so she's just dominating there. And it's a great up front with Jada Wims, Lisi Lange, and Chana Hart, 16, 14, and 12 blocks all together. Good. Robert Taylor missed me talking about the Jets, and that's all that matters. LC will be taking on Whitman College on Thursday in a scrimmage before their first Cascade Conference match against Walla Walla at 2 p.m. on Friday at Walla Walla. Again, it's in September when they finally get their first home game. And now let's get to it. Washington has a little bit farther to go as they started practices a week later. But Idaho football partially got underway last week. Coeur d'Alene got some shocking results. Coeur d'Alene got shut out in their opener. Capital got shut out by Eagle. Capital is a team that'll be playing Lewiston next week. So some shocking upsets already, but we'll look at 5 games and we'll do a little pick 'em. Here is it's going to be tough to kind of figure these teams out. I've been able to see a couple of them live through practices or the jamboree that I went to, but they're not showing their best, especially in that jamboree when they're playing conference opponents. Like Lapway didn't even play their quarterback. They threw a freshman out there trying stuff out. So we'll get there. We'll start with the Lewiston Bengals. They're traveling to Southern Idaho to play in the Battle of the Border? Is that what they call that?
I think that's what they call it now.
It's an Idaho versus Utah tournament deal. Lewiston is going to take on Layton of Utah. And Robert, when we first got on, asked me what we know about Layton. What I know about Layton is they went 6-5 last year, which was their first winning season since 2016, their second winning season since 2008. And prior to last year, Layton had went 7 and 32 in those previous 4 years. The other thing I know is they have very bright blue helmets. That's what I know. So who do you got, Lewiston or Layton?
With not knowing enough about them, I think I'm going to go with Lewiston. Robert Taylor, you did miss it. I do have the Jets in finishing 3rd in that division. And
I will also take Lewiston. A little concerned at the quarterback position. We'll see what they go there, but they bring back their entire wide receiver core. They lose Cruz Hepburn, but they have some great running backs in the place of them. And all of the coaches that I've talked to for Lewiston have said that it is the biggest team that they've had. Like their line is big, and they're going to be able to push people around. So Lewiston's one of those teams that you worry about if they get down a little bit, because I don't think they're going to have the best passing game, but they're going to ground and pound you and wear you out. And if you get behind them, it's going to be tough to stop them. So I'm going to take the Bengals as well. How about Kellogg and Moscow? Where you got there?
Moscow is going through some changes what they have in the last couple of years. They've gotten better this last year. They got a lot better. But I had the opportunity to watch Kellogg play last year against Grangeville. They held their own against Grangeville. So give me Kellogg in that one.
I'm going to take Kellogg as well. They might be one of the favorites to win the 3A. And they had a really good year last year. And I think everything I've heard is they are very hopeful for this year to be even better. So I'm going to take Kellogg as well. How about Troy and Deary?
That's a toss up. And I'm going to go with Troy just because, it seems to be flip flop every year between these guys. That conference is a very tough conference. And I'm just going to go with Troy this year.
I understand that pick. Deary really struggled last year, just had the one win, but they have really improved as far as their numbers go. I did their preview that you'll see in the Tribune in a few days, and Coach Olson was really excited. He gets a couple players back that were injured last year. I don't know if they're going to take that giant step and now be the top of their league, but I think they're going to be difficult. So I'm going to take Deary to pull off the mini upset, I think, in that situation. How about Camia and Lapway?
Camia Lapway, same thing. Lapway didn't play their guy the other day, so don't know what to expect from him. But if anything is the same way with the basketball program, those kids are working out every day. But we're talking about the Cubs. We're talking about Camia. We're talking about the idea of it's a different environment. If you've ever been to a game in Camia under Friday Night Lights, I think Camia pulls out a very close one against Lapway. It will be a shootout, but it'll be close.
Lapway has a lot of speed. Obviously, Elias Yearout looked awesome in that jamboree, even with the young quarterbacks throwing to him. You get Ellingwood Jones throwing to him like he should be on that team. I think Lapway is going to put up a lot of points. Like you said, this is going to be a shootout. The box score that I'm going to have to take on Friday is going to be a long one, but it'll be fun. But I'm going to take Lapway to get the win there. Again, it's partially because I got to see them play, and I haven't seen Camia yet this year, but I'm going to take the Wildcats. And our final one, Prairie versus Oakley. I know nothing about Oakley. Prairie is a super running team. Again, they were also part of that jamboree. And no joke, I was writing notes down that they never passed the ball, because in the jamboree, you get the ball for 15 minutes against your opponent. And you go, if you get the first down, or if you don't get the first down, you go back to the 40, score a touchdown, you go back to the 40. You just get 15 minutes of a running clock. They never passed the ball more than 2 yards for 14 minutes and 38 seconds. They lined up for one more play, threw a 40-yard bomb perfectly. Then, in their next setup, same thing. I was over there more watching Lapway and Clearwater Valley, but I'd look over and Prairie's just running it and running it. I go over there, watch the end of it. Last play of the 15 minutes, 40-yard bomb, perfect. And I think Prairie's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, but Prairie reminds me a lot about who I got to see last year. Pete Williams and I drove up to Davenport and watched Davenport take on Asotin in that rain-drenched game. And that was the same kind of play system. I think they threw the ball 3 times, 4 times that entire game. Everything was kind of a form of a old wishbone that they used to run. And I think I see the similarities that are quite strong between those ball clubs.
Oh, there you go. There's your Baltimore update. They're up 5-3. We'll do the other updates later, but that's a very important one. Especially, even for Seattle right now, that's an important game. Both of those teams in playoff contention. So there you go. We just picked 5 of the games that are going out there next week. Maybe we'll extend it to 10 once the Washington schools get going, so we can hit some more schools. We'll see
next week
how things feel. It's putting some of the logs together. Oh my god, there's so much sports starting. Starting Thursday, really.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk with Coach Bai today, and him still installing plays, and he says, we're less than 10 days out. He says we're hosting Moscow in less than 10 days, and it's going to be a exciting year, I think, for Clarkson football too, and all of Washington, and having Coach Jim Holman's team back at it. It's going to be an interesting season around here in the Washington side.
All right, so that'll do it for our local roundup. Again, that'll extend as things get going, and we want to give the love to the local squads, but there's nothing going on in the summer, and now it's back, so we'll have some fun with it. But Robert, tell them what they're watching.
You are watching the R&R Sports Report live here on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. If you are not followers on our YouTube channel or want to go back and watch interviews from Gino Benali to Sean Pullman, make sure you go and hit the subscribe button on the R&R Sports Report on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, we're getting a couple of people on there. We're still 5 followers away from 600 on Facebook, and then one of us will go train at an MMA center and get our butts kicked for an hour or two, or however long we survive.
It'll be tough.
All right, let's get into it. You told us he was from Puerto Rico, and then he wasn't good enough to go to Alabama schools, but got taken anyways or something. Who am I? Part 2.
All right, so this gentleman was from Puerto Rico, even though his mom is Dominican, his dad is Cuban. He couldn't get into a 4-year college, but he signed with a community college in Alabama without being scouted. Here's some of your next group. I was drafted in back-to-back years by the same team in the 43rd round and the 24th round, respectively.
So, baseball player.
I was drafted as an infielder where I played until 1992. Then I transitioned to a different position. I made my major league debut in 1995. I played my entire 17-year career with one team. That's all you get this time.
I have an idea, but I'm going to wait.
Okay. Because I have a funny feeling I think you know it.
I think I do.
So, with that being said, I think it's time to do our draft.
Yeah, we got some fun people watching. Denny Grubb has been really good about at least giving us one vote, and he's been voting for me. I've won the last 3 that we've gotten a vote in. I now lead you 16-10. Again, Denny Grubb with the 1. But we got Robert Taylor out here. We got Haley's been listening. Eric, if he's still out there. Some of the young generation that plays video games. Well, Haley sometimes plays video games. And we played Wheel of Fortune today, and she destroyed me in the last game. So we stopped playing video games together. It was the first time she beat me in that game, and it was not close. But Madden came out last week. Everything I've heard is it's not as bad as it's been. So we'll go with that. Best sports video game of all time.
Yeah,
that is our sports related draft this week. Yes. Hey, it always works.
Maybe Denny will be nice and vote for me today.
I will say, if you want to change your vote right now, Robert, to Conker's Bad Fur Day, you get Robert Taylor's vote, even though it has nothing to do with sport.
It'll be interesting. All right, so Randy picked the topic, so I guess I get to pick first. So for me, it has to be a game that I remember when it went into. Yeah, Danny wanting money. Has to be a game that came into the lanes, and I remember sitting it, and they put it right in the very middle of the small room when all the video games was in the small room. But that was the NBA Jam. There was just something about listening to the commentary all the time. And probably one of the biggest catchphrases you will ever hear. And it was so iconic all the time. Boom, shakalaka. And did you hear that? If you were standing in the other room, you knew somebody was in there throwing down. It just, for me, that was one of those games. And I want to say it came out in 91. I could be wrong. The answer is Weedsville.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Early 90s. was the first NBA Jam. A couple years later, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, which is my favorite version of that series. Sadly, after Tournament Edition, it's never really taken off. Like you have the NBA Street Games, you have the NBA Inside Drive or whatever that kind of is the
Right.
same way. They tried to reboot NBA Jam on like the Xbox 360, and it just didn't really have the same feel to it. But yeah, that mid 90s era, especially in the arcades, absolutely fantastic. I have an arcade 1-up version of it in our dining room. So I'm big on NBA Jam as well. Again, I'd say Tournament Edition over the regular NBA Jam, but that's neither here nor there. Either of them are good.
1993. Yep.
All right, my first pick is the one that should have revolutionized all of gaming, but a certain company got greedy because of it. But ESPN NFL 2K5 is the best football game that has ever been made. The addition of ESPN to the old NFL 2K series that was part of the Sega Dreamcast was huge. You had Chris Berman doing these like weekly recaps, which for the PS2 was revolutionary. Like if you go back and watch him now, it is very cut and paste. He's saying the same stuff. But back then, there was at least a lot of variety enough to feel different. The franchise mode was way better than what Madden was offering at the time. They had a first person mode where you literally were in the helmet of the player. As a running back, it was a fun mode. As a receiver, it was impossible. As a defender, it could be okay too. But if you had to try to catch the ball, it became absolutely insane. Quarterback was pretty cool too. Again, way ahead of its time. And the crazy thing is, sold for $20.
Yeah.
ESPN or NFL 2K went, you know what? We're coming out with a game every single year. We're going to make it $20. We're going to make it better. I wish that would have taken off with sporting games because you get, especially now that you have so many microtransactions, even MLB The Show, which I absolutely love. And I've put like 140 hours in with this new version playing through this season. It's filled with microtransactions that they can make a lot of money out of. I wish they would not make it $70. So that's why I love NFL 2K5.
Yeah, it was one of the top games out there. So what ESPN brought to it was really, really cool. So for round two, for me, I'm going even a little bit older than I did. Let's say the late 80s. And there we go. This is my one. I have Mike Tyson Punch-Out.
No, you don't. You have Punch-Out. That's a different game.
That's what I have. Mike Tyson Punch-Out is what I was.
Punch-Out's a different game because it's the non-Mike Tyson version after Mike Tyson went to jail.
No, the one that I have that I was meaning was the Mike Tyson Punch-Out. That was one of the first games that came out when I finally got an NES system. That was the game when I was excited in high school. When I finally had enough money, I went and bought it. It was having that game, and I remember having it, and I remember having Super Mario Brothers. Those were the only, and you had Duck Hunt. I had Duck Hunt, but I got so mad at the dog that I would throw the controller at the screen every once in a while. But yeah, I mean, seeing Mike Tyson Punch-Out there, that was really cool.
Hopefully my mom's not listening, but no, I've never thrown a controller in my whole life.
Wish I could say the same.
Oof. No, I love Punch-Out. Again, with you, Mike Tyson Punch-Out was very, very fun. The Super Nintendo one was really good as well. Even the Wii version, they did a lot of really cool things with. However, Punch-Out, very racist game. Holy racist game. That was a different era. Yes, Punch-Out will never be able to come back. Ever.
Yeah.
For me, anybody that knows me, I love franchise modes in my sporting games. I just got through with the MLB The Show franchise for this year's version. Madden was always fun for that. NFL 2K, if it would have survived, was great. None were better than EA Sports NCAA football series with the recruiting. Every year they added different elements to it. NCAA Football 14 was the last year that it came out. You can now get it for a ridiculously amount of money, as obviously they stopped making them for a long time. They said they're going to bring it back, hopefully by next year. But I just feel like it's going to be a lot of microtransactions by far. It had no Wii Sports did not have franchise mode, or it would have gotten a bit better. Also, I didn't really have a Wii until much later on, and my Wii Sports playing time was going to other people's houses. Yeah. So no, NCAA football 14. They had all the teams on there. We always had lots of fun. No, we have not done Wii Sports yet, but having fun trying to get Idaho to win the national championship. Having so much fun with Jeff and Jason, a couple buddies of mine, where we played this game so long and we got so many years in there that the national championship one year was between two teams we did not control, and it was Vanderbilt and Rice.
We bowling greater than all. I don't know about that. I can't listen. Yeah,
Eric, that's what I'm worried about.
I can bowl and really, really good, but you get me onto Wii bowling and I suck. So Wii bowling is not greater than all. Sorry. All right, round number 3, and I know I'm going with a game that Randy strongly dislikes.
Yes. No, strongly. Back then,
though, they were really good. So I'm going to probably the best Madden game that came out, and that's Madden 2005. And no, I'm not picking it just because the greatest linebacker to ever play the game is on the cover.
Yes, you did.
Not because it was Ray Lewis there, but there was a lot of different things that this game offered up for the first time. A really intense franchise where you were able to program different prices, being that owner, doing that stuff, prices of certain stuff. The animation had jumped so much between 2004 and 2005. It was huge. But the biggest thing that makes this game the best game was the introduction to the hit stick, where you were able to hit that and get your defensive guy to smack up against there and hit. And it was a whole new realm to see what this game was all about. And so to have a guy like Ray Lewis part of the introduction to the hit stick for Madden, I think was really good. But I agree with you 100%. What they've done in the last few years, it just seems like, you've just copied last year. You just copied last year.
To a point where there's signs in Madden from like Madden 21. You could find flags that said Madden 17. It's because it's straight copy and paste. But no, early 2000s EA Sports was the pinnacle of all sports. NASCAR Thunder, I think it was 2004, was a ridiculous version. You had a crazy career mode there as well. The fact that you could take your NCAA players and move them onto Madden was always really, really cool. They had all sorts of stuff as far as EA Sports goes. College Hoops, which hasn't had a game in 30 years, they had a pretty good one as well. So early 2000s Madden, I'm okay with. My last pick, and I'm sorry, it's not Wii Bowling, but it's the first sports game that I got absolutely hooked on. And a part of it is because I had stats, which is not something you saw back in the mid 1980s, but Tecmo Super Bowl. I mean, everyone knows the whole Bo Jackson stuff. That was more Tecmo Bowl where he went nuts. He was still really good. And there were some overpowered players in Tecmo Super Bowl. But I played so many seasons as the New York Jets. Again, Ken O'Brien broke records on that game. Altoon had all the receiving records. Dennis Byrd, the linebacker, broke all the sack records. That dude had like 50 sacks a year on my game. But that was like NBA Jam for you. Tecmo Super Bowl was my first love as far as sports go. I could still sit there and just play that game for hours. And I know I did back as a kid. So there you go. Those are our sports related draft. For Robert, he has NBA Jam, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and Madden 2005. I have ESPN NFL 2K5, NCAA Football 14, and Tecmo Super Bowl. Shout out, of course, to MLB The Show, Robert did say Tony Hawk. That's another fantastic series. I bought the remastered collection of that game.
We didn't even talk about Major League Baseball with Kenny Griffey Jr.
That
when
one's
that
not
was
as
originally.
good.
I don't know. You get
Backyard,
that.
yes. Denny Grubb, I didn't give him enough credit. Backyard baseball is the funniest stuff. I still watch YouTubers play that game. For sure. So there you go. Let us
We
know
didn't.
who won in this one.
Yeah, and a couple others we didn't mention. Viva 13,
Yeah, FIFA and us. I just was never a soccer guy.
NFL Blitz was the other one,
Yeah.
so that was a huge one too. So
NFL Blitz would probably make my list if I can get my hands on this new arcade one-up cabinet that is coming out that has NFL Blitz on it. They're finally coming out with it, and I want it. I need it.
Make sure you say hi to Randy. He's there.
Hi.
The grandkids are here tonight, so excited to have them. Yeah, some great games out there. So
there you go. See, I got one Vic. I got one vote. You should have changed one to Conquerors. I'm telling you right now. You would have had a chance. We will let this stay open for the rest of the show, and we will see who ends up winning. But let's go ahead and move on to some NFL news. Did this really happen in the last week?
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Watson, God, what a week.
It has been a crazy week.
Deshaun Watson suspended 11 games. They compromised. Fined for $5 million, which, not shockingly, means that he can return for the revenge game against Houston. Like that wasn't planned.
Well, and that was the funny thing that I was questioning and people asked me about saw that thing. Did they do it knowing that if the NFL was going to get to 12 games, was there a possibility of things being sued? So I don't think so. I think it was more, how can we schedule to make something to be important for this team for him to come back? I'm more to the question of, okay, if Deshaun Watson is gone, he has to stop practicing as soon as the preseason is done. So he has no more practice.
But I do believe he's done now, or at least he's not playing preseason games.
Right. So what does that look like as far as how is he going to stay on top of things when you cannot practice, can't be at the facility practicing? It'll be interesting to see what he does to stay ready to go.
And what happens if Jacoby Brissett surprises people and he's winning games for Cleveland? Do you just roll with Jacoby Brissett? Or do you throw Deshaun Watson out there who hasn't played in 2 years?
Well, I think that's the big thing is I think Jacoby's got to prove something in these first few games. Whether or not they keep Cleveland in the playoff hunt, it will be interesting because you look at the depth chart of that team, they have a decent team that could easily make the playoffs. It's just, is he the guy that's going to keep them in the running? I don't think he is, but you never know. I mean, what he could do. I mean, maybe the change of scenery away from Indianapolis is going to be big for him. Who knows?
And we'll do our breakdown of Cleveland next week. That's kind of why we waited on the North divisions, because we were kind of waiting for this Cleveland Brown stuff to go through, just because that honestly, that changes a lot of the aspect of how the AFC North goes. For sure. More quarterback news. Baker Mayfield has been named the starter in Carolina. I'm not surprised. Are you?
No, I think it'll be good for both of those guys. Both of them being out of the same draft year. I think they can really help each other out. I think it is going to be a benefit for having both those guys with this club.
Was the hit on Kayvon Thibodeau dirty?
Listen, I think it was. It seemed as an offensive lineman, he went down pretty darn low from what I'm taught and what I teach as far as a football coach. I think he went way below the chop. Yes, Thaddeus Moss is a tight end, so he's not as, how do I want to say this, is not probably coached enough of how to do a chop block or how to get low on some of those blocks. I think it was low. We'll see. 3 to 4 weeks for Thibodeau, who could have been the defensive rookie of the year. It'll be interesting to see what happens, what the Giants do with him over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I would like for them to get rid of that kind of a block. Like, I get it for the offensive player, it's less of an impact to you if you drop low. And basically, they're not trying to injure the player, they're just trying to get them off their feet. They're trying to trip them up. Obviously, he hits them pretty good. I don't think it was intentional by any means to try to hurt him. It was just more of a, I don't want to go head to head with this big guy. But I would like for them. I mean, we see quarterbacks get protected all the time as far as getting hit low. I would like for this just to be completely taken out.
Yeah, 100%. Because and with coaching at the junior high level, and I hate this, and I'm going to say it out loud. And if any of our listeners are friends with these coaches, but I don't like the way that the Lewiston coaches teach this cut block that they do at the junior high level. These kids that we work with up at 7th grade, 8th grade, are brand new to the system, brand new to playing a team sport. And they're teaching their guys, their offensive line guys, to chop right at our guys, for pass plays. And anytime we know a pass play, you could see the guys looking, and the first thing they do is to try to duck and roll where it looks like they have fallen out of their stance.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't, for safety reasons, especially at a junior high level, it's just not a good thing.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure. All right, let's move on. Who Am I Part 3, but I'm pretty sure Metallica's involved in this.
Metallic? No, I don't know. All right, Who Am I 3? The last set of data I gave you, he was drafted back-to-back years by the same team. He was drafted as an infielder, but then ended up transitioning to a different position. All right, I played my entire 17-year career with one team, but I wore 5 different numbers during my tenure with the team. My last number 20, is retired.
Oh, not on the right page at all.
My last number 20 is retired by the organization. I was a 5-time All-Star, a 5-time Silver Slugger, a 4-time World Series champion. I appeared in just over 1,800 games where I batted .273, 275 home runs, and 1,065 RBIs.
I could not remember Mariano Rivera being an infielder, but I was dead set on Rivera being the guy. So now I got to think some more. Say those last couple again, because I was more shocked than anything.
I played 17 years, same team, wore 5 different numbers. My last number 20, is retired by the organization. I appeared in over 1,800 games. I have 5 All-Stars, 5 Silver Sluggers, and I'm a 4-time World Series champion.
It's got to be still in the Yankees then. It's Posada then.
Good job, sir. Jose Posada.
Have you seen his dance moves? It's great.
I have not seen his dance move.
For being an old man. What do you think of Paul O'Neill getting his number retired this weekend?
Number 21. It was really good. I saw a few of them. I think I laughed harder listening to Hal get booed by the Hal Steinbrenner getting booed. So
yeah, that's why I needed those stats again. I was dead set on Rivera with the 17 years with this one team, and I know he changed because he was going to be a starting pitcher for a while, and then changed to the bullpen and really changed things with his cutters. I'm like, was he an infielder before? But no, yeah.
So reading a little bit with Posada, he played second base and shortstop in the Dominican, and so then when he went to the community college in Alabama, he was never drafted, and so he played there, but then ended up getting moved in, I want to say 1993, just before he made his 93, 94. They moved him in the AAA into the catcher position.
Yeah, so Denny's right. How many numbers have now been retired by the Yankees? You can't have a single digit anymore. They're all gone. 1 through 10's gone. So you have 1 through 10, 15, 16, 20, 21, 23, 32, 37, 42, 44, 46, 49, and 51. So they're all retired. They're all gone.
How long till we see triple digits on the Yankees uniforms?
You're going to have to pretty quick. I mean, you have to have, 27 people on your roster, 28 people on your roster? We're getting close.
I'm going to have 2A. I'm not Derek Jeter, but I'm Derek Jeter 2.0 or something like that. 2A, 2B.
Yeah, come up with something fun. Where are we at? Let's go MLB scoreboard real quick. Yankees are 1 out away from defeating the Mets. They're up 4-2, but they've been 1 out away for a few batters now. Mets do have the bases loaded. Wandy Peralta coming out on the mound. Cardinals, after losing the first game of the doubleheader, beating the Cubs 7-1. Orioles still up 5-3 over the White Sox. They're in the bottom of the 8th inning. Blue Jays still up 8-1 in the 7th inning over the Red Sox. Diamondbacks 2, Royals 1 through 7 innings. Astros leading the Twins 2-0, middle of the 7th there. Rangers over the Rockies 6-4 in a game nobody cares about in the 7th. Guardians 1, Padres 0 in the 3rd inning. Scoreless in Oakland between the A's and the Marlins in the 4th. No hits yet through 1 inning in Washington and Seattle. Dodgers already up 1-0 over the Brewers through 1. And finals, Phillies hold on, or they come back to win. They blew a lead to the Cincinnati Reds. Gave up 2 runs in the 9th to go down 6-5, and then scored 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th to win 7-6. Braves beat the Pirates 6-1. Giants beat the Tigers 3-1, and the Rays all over the Angels 11-1.
Yeah, big. It's going to be an interesting night to how some of these games finish out here. So,
all right. So we did the AFC East. Now it is time to do the NFC East. And I don't know if we have any Cowboy fans out there. If we do, they've been very quiet. Actually, I forget. What is Denny Grubb's team? I know his baseball team. Denny, what's your football team? I don't know if I know this. We'll go with the Dallas Cowboys. You're defending NFC East champions. They went 12-5. Their win-loss over-unders at 10.5. Mike McCarthy in his 3rd season. Could be his last. They added James Washington, wide receiver from the Steelers. Oh, God.
I think he's been hanging out with Mike Tatko again.
Oh, no. Dante Fowler, defensive end from the Falcons, and they got Tyler Smith, an offensive tackle in the 1st round from Tulsa. They lose Amari Cooper and Cedric Wilson, a couple of good wide receivers. Randy Gregory goes to Denver, and Collins, an offensive lineman, goes to Cincinnati. The Yankees are all sorts of stressing me out, so please talk.
For me, you look at is this defense going to stand up? Is it going to be you've got DeMarcus Lawrence and Armstrong on the outside. Can Van Der Esch stay healthy? I think is the big thing. So for me, it's how much of this defense is going to happen. Are they going to stay healthy enough to be dominant in the games they play? Or are these games that Dallas plays going to be such blowouts?
I think Dallas is in trouble. I really think that they are going to be in trouble. They took a great step. They proved a lot of people wrong for finally winning the division. Still can't take those big steps come the postseason. But there's this whole Sean Payton thing looming over Dallas right now. I mean, they're going to say all the right things. Okay, Yankees win. Sorry, I was nervous. God, it's never good when a batter, even though he reaches for it, gets a hold of it. You have no sound on, so you can't hear how loud it was, and you just see your pitcher go. It's like, oh God. But no, that's 3 wins in a row.
Straight. I was going to say 3 straight now.
I have to go back and see the last time that happened. It's been a while. But no, for Dallas, Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been right for years. I mean, Dak Prescott, I think, is still an underrated quarterback from some. He's an overrated quarterback if you talk to any Dallas Cowboy fan. This is a weak division, but I think there is a team here that could be sneaky and maybe a second that I had high hopes for until the quarterback they got.
Yeah, 100%. I think it'll be interesting to see. like I said, this division to me, I think is still the worst. It's got to be the worst division there. So
Speaking of bad, the New York Giants 4-13 last year. Over under for win total 6.5. Brian Daboll, though, first year head coach. They added Ricky Seals Jones, tight end from Washington, Matt Breida, running back from Buffalo, Tyrod Taylor, quarterback from Houston. Usually we don't bring up backup quarterback signings, but Daniel Jones. I don't know. Kayvon Thibodeau, we already talked about. He's out for a couple of weeks. He was a first-round pick, as was Evan Neal, first-rounder from Alabama. They lose Evan Ingram to Jacksonville, safety Logan Ryan to Tampa Bay, and Devontae Booker is gone there. I have zero hope for this team. Daniel Jones is the one like young quarterback where I've already given up on.
Yeah, 100%. And that was where my question leads is, can Daniel Jones do anything there? But for me, I think with this team is how does Saquon Barkley bounce back and have a good season? I would not be shocked if we don't see Tyrod Taylor by maybe week 6, week 7, somewhere in that area. But I think I'm more excited to see what Dable brings to the table and with his enthusiasm of how he plays. So I think that is the big one.
Last time, if anyone is wondering, I know you all are very excited to hear this. Yankees have won 3 games in a row for the first time since July 30th. So about a month. The last time that the Yankees won 4 games in a row was a long ass time ago. I believe May, if I didn't click too far. No, there it is. June 29th. They had won 4 straight because they swept Oakland. Good thing is, Yankees are headed to Oakland now.
Should be, yeah, it should be.
I know you guys were all dying to hear that.
It should be easier, but what? Like I just said a few minutes ago, when Seattle can't win or sweep out of Oakland and we end up losing 2-3, it's a little unnerving. So
now to turn on the Baltimore game and watch the end of that. But yeah, I think we're both down on the Giants this year.
Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles 9-8 last season. Win loss over under at 9.5. Nick Sirianni in his second season with the club got some good wide receivers. They traded for AJ Brown in that wild trade during the NFL draft. They also get Zach Pascal from the Colts, James Bradbury, a cornerback from the Giants. They get Kazir White, a linebacker from the Chargers, Hassan Reddick, another linebacker from the Panthers, and a defensive tackle, Jordan Davis, they got in the first round of the draft. They had 3 first-round picks going into the draft. They ended up just with the 1, but they kind of got A.J. Brown, so that's okay. Alex Singleton, a linebacker, headed off to Denver, and Rodney McLeod, a safety, ends up in Indianapolis. This is another, like Tua, I think this is a make-or-break year for Jalen Hurts, but I have a lot more faith in Jalen Hurts than I do than Tua.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is he's got a couple of big targets. Devonta Smith's going to be there for his second full season. A.J. Brown, I think he is that leader that's going to help Jalen Hurts. I mean, I like what that team has done so far. I think it's going to boil down with this team is how healthy they keep their offensive line. How can they keep Jalen Hurts upright and not running for his life as much as he did last year? I think that's the biggest thing. As long as they have the protection, I think they're going to be there. And with things being questionable right now with Jason Kelce, their center, it'll be interesting. But I think I'm a little bit higher on this team than the Dolphins, but it'll be interesting.
And then finally, the Washington football team, now known as the Washington Commanders. Again, can we have gotten more bland with these new names? I have no problem with changing names, but Guardians, Commanders, come on, let's have some fun with it. Washington 7-10 last year. Win-loss over-under at 7.5. Third year with Ron Rivera. They added Carson Wentz as the quarterback from Indianapolis. Andrew Norwell, a guard from the Jaguars, and Jawan Dotson, a good wide receiver from Penn State. They get in the first round. They lost all the guards. Sheriff goes to Jacksonville. Eric Flowers is a free agent still. Landon Collins, they had lost several times because he can never stay healthy. But hurts the offensive line. This is one of those teams for me, and I've already had several that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks that I have no idea. I know a lot of people are completely down on this team where they believe that they could be worse than the Giants. I'm not that far down, but I'm not sure how high up I want to get, especially with Carson Wentz as the quarterback. I've always liked the way that this defense has been built in Washington the last few years. I think they need to use Antonio Gibson, a bit more than they have. I think he could be a star running back there. So I feel like they could really take that next step. They just refuse to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Because the one you said it, you took it just before I said it. They've got to benefit and use more of Gibson and get him involved in this offense a little bit more. Is Carson Wentz the answer there? I don't think so. But it's going to boil down to, can this team focus without the outside stuff going on with ownership, management, all that? I think that's where it's going to boil down to. Can they just focus and play ball? That, I think, is the biggest thing.
So I've already talked about it. I think Jalen Hurts can take that next step. Do you agree or disagree? As far as our biggest question for the division.
I think he can. I really do. I like the way he plays. It's going to be interesting with the weapons. I think with AJ Brown being there, I think that leadership with him and putting them together with Smith, I think it's going to be a great combination with those three guys there. For me, this question, it boils down to, and you made it known a few minutes ago with the whole Sean Payton thing and all that. Can Mike McCarthy make it to the end of the season before Jerry Jones says, you're done. You got to go bye-bye?
I'm trying to remember the last time Jerry Jones fired somebody mid-season. I think he has no problem firing people. But I don't know if he's like a George Steinbrenner type where he will get rid of them mid-season. As before Denny says it, Baltimore wins. Take that, Denny. I beat you. Orioles beat the White Sox 5-3. So I think he's going to survive. But it's going to be a topic on all of those talking head shows through November and December. I'll say that. All right, let's get to our standing predictions, and I'll go first because kind of spoiled it. Philadelphia, to me, I think, is winning this division. Jalen Hurts going to take that step forward. I think Dallas takes a step back. I'm going to go out on a limb, though. It's kind of like my Los Angeles Chargers pick where I would like to see it happen, but I have not full faith on it. I wouldn't put any money on it, but I'm going to take the Washington Commanders to finish second in this division. By that, I mean like 9-8, 8-9. I do think Dallas takes a step back. They finish third, and the Giants easily fourth place.
Yeah, you've got a little bit more faith in Washington than I do, just with all the going on. I'm going to take Philadelphia to come away with this win. I think the acquisition of Brown and what he can do there, Jalen Hurts.
What can Brown do for you?
What can Brown do for you? Yeah. So I'm going to put Philadelphia there too. For me, the Commanders are the bottom team. There's just so much drama going on down there. I think
the ownership issue there too could definitely be a big thing.
I think the Giants do finish third in this division. I'm excited to see what Daboll can do for this team. If he is actually the player coach that he is showing he could be and letting this team expand, but they've got to get rid of Daniel Jones. I think that is the anchor to this team, bringing them down and sinking the ship. And with that being said, I think Zeke has got enough. Dak is going to be enough just to get second place in this division. Do I think they make the playoffs? No.
It's fair. Absolutely fair. There you go. That's our AFC and NFC previews for the show. We have 2 divisions to go. They will both be next week when we do the AFC and NFC North divisions. And then the week after that, we will do our playoffs and Super Bowl and MVPs and everything there. Maybe we'll do some college previews as well. But again, high school will be in full force at that point. So we will kind of just see what time allows during those shows. Let's get to the sports that do not get enough airtime. And of course, we have to start with Robert's new favorite sport from last year, Aussie rules football. The end of the regular season is here. Eric hated me for the first half of that game as Hawthorne was keeping it close. Western ends up winning that one 87-64. Geelong crushes West Coast. So congratulations to Robert as they win that one 131-46. So they are your top seed with a bullet there. They've won 13 straight. Melbourne gets a big win against Brisbane 115-57 to end up as the number 2 seed. Sydney's able to get a win, so they finish up as the 3 seed. They beat St. Kilda 88-74. That was going to be a game that could be really interesting. And then just the way things played out, it's no longer needed. So Sydney is the 3 seed. Collingwood in the game of the night gets the big win. We'll talk about that shortly. So they will be the 4 seed. Those 4 teams will all play each other next week. The winners move to what is basically the semifinals. They call it something different, but they will move on to the semifinals. The other 2 teams move on as well, as they will play the winners of the bottom 4. So I still love that you make the top 4, you get an extra chance. You try to earn your bye a different way, or you have to go the long way. So those are your top 4. Fremantle will be your 5th seed. Brisbane will be the 6th. Richmond the 7th, and Eric's Western Bulldogs are your 8th seed after Collingwood and Carlton had a crazy game where Carlton jumped out to a 23-point lead at the end of the third period, the end of the third quarter. I stopped paying attention. And then a bit later, I checked the score, and Collingwood had come back and won the game 75-74. They hit the game-winning goal with 1:44 to go in that one. So that gets them into the top 4. So that was big for them as well, as Eric says, McCreary goal of the year, because it got Western into the playoffs. Your thoughts on this final week?
It was crazy watching that one. And you messaged me, you said you got to watch the last few minutes of this game between Carlton and Collingwood. And I ended up going back and watching all of the highlights, and then even going back and watching the whole fourth quarter between this team. And it goes back, and you look at Collingwood led by 20 points at the end of the first quarter, then back to the other direction. It was just one of those games that was crazy. And to know that Collingwood could knock off that team, you could see just even with the shifting and changes within the ladder. I mean, it made some huge changes, squeaking Western in with that loss. Carlton 4 straight losses. It just, the last 5 weeks of this season overall, I was some huge changes.
Denny Grubb has a very interesting trivia question for us, because this is what Denny does. He asks, which pitcher started the All-Star game, then played only one MLB game the rest of his career? That's a good one. The only one that is popping out to me, and I don't know the old names. Like, if this is before 2000, I'm going to have no clue. The only one that's popping up into my head, just because he had injury stuff and then all the health stuff that hit after that, is I'm going to guess Roy Halladay. I forget if he was able to really pitch much the last season he was able to play, or how that all worked. But that's going to be my guess. Do you have a guess?
The one that just popped up in my head when I was thinking was another Yankee, but that and I don't remember how long he was there. Was Abbott an Yankee?
Jim Abbott, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the name that popped up to me, was Abbott, but I don't know if I'm right with that or not.
Eric with a fun little nugget too. We got stat people going back and forth now. Second time ever a team missed the finals. Halliday's wrong. All right, what's the answer, Danny? Because we both got it wrong. But just, yeah, crazy AFL. So your playoffs starting this week, you get Brisbane and Richmond Thursday morning. And then on Friday, you get Melbourne and Sydney, Geelong and Collingwood. And then Saturday, Fremantle and Western. Who's winning the whole thing, sir?
Now remember, that is a week from
Oh, that's right. There's a week off.
There's a week off, so these guys will come back and be there. So for this week, as strong as we've been playing, I'd hate to say Geelong, but they have been playing so balanced in this 13-game win streak. Watching Stengel play, and it's not everything going on your favorite player, Tom Hawkins. It's not Cameron. They have balanced everything out from Rowan to Stengel. And it's been a great balanced team effort. I think they're playing so hot. How could you not go with Geelong right now?
Because I hate Geelong and I refuse. I'm between Melbourne and Sydney. It's boring that you went with the top seed. I went with the next two. Melbourne was red hot at the beginning of the year, struggled in the middle, and have really started to turn things around. So I think Melbourne will end up winning the grand final. We'll see how things go once all that gets going. Let's get into some other sports as NASCAR is down to their final week of the regular season. Kyle Larson bumped Chase Elliott out of the way at Watkins Glen on a restart to get the win. But Chase Elliott does lock up the regular season championship, so that gives him some bonus points. I forget how many now. It's like 20 or 25, which are very key playoff points for Chase Elliott. The thing to watch next week, and I implore you to watch this week because it's Daytona. It's crazy anyways. 1980. Geez, thanks, Denny. Jeez. There it is. J.R. Richard from Houston in the 1980 All-Star Game, 4 years before I was born. I appreciate it. But last week of the regular season at NASCAR, Daytona is always insane. And now the fact that there's 25 points between Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. for that last playoff spot. Unless one of those drivers that are in the top 30 in points that do not have a win yet, which there's like a dozen of them. If any of them get a win, they jump both of them, and they will take that last spot. There's going to be a lot of wrecks because it's winning in, or just you have to win at all costs at this point for a lot of these teams. So they're going to have no issues creating holes to stay up front. I hope they do it later on in the race so we don't get one of those races where we have 22 cars halfway through the race just driving in the straight line because everyone else has just been eliminated. The other big story is Kurt Busch, who I believe is going to be missing a sixth straight race at Daytona. He's been dealing with concussion issues. He's into the playoffs. He has been given a waiver, which his brother Kyle got several years ago. And then Kyle ended up, I believe, winning the championship that year. I don't think Kurt Busch will, but he is taking up a playoff spot right now, even though he will not run at Daytona. There is a worry he won't run in one or two of the first playoff rounds. So he's just kind of taking a spot and will be eliminated in the first round. But unless he comes out and says that he doesn't want the spot, NASCAR has said that they will give it to him because he has the win. So if he decides to drop out of the playoff race and as like, I'm not going to be back for this first round of the playoffs, maybe now there's two spots open and it could get really interesting. But Daytona is going to be really fun this weekend.
And I think that's an earlier race, is it not?
I will double check that.
I'm not 100%, but I think it's going to boil down to getting to the playoffs. I think Chase Elliott has been probably the most consistent guy all season, and he's going to be the guy to beat. But if he races anything like his dad when we start the playoffs, I mean, it's going to be 100% like he's done all season long.
And it is a Saturday night race, 4 p.m. Pacific on NBC. It's your Daytona Coke Zero Sugar 400 race.
All right.
What about this silly golf stuff?
Let's turn attention to the golf scene as we are now Down to the tour championship after this week's BMW championship, the second of 3 for the championship. The top 70 in the FedEx points were in this tournament. I think the biggest news that came out of this one is Will Zalatoris withdrawals after he shot 3 under for 2 days, and he had done quite well. He was in striking distance, but Patrick Cantlay comes away with a big win. He is the first guy in the 16-year history to win back-to-back championships at the BMW, so he does extremely well. Holds off Scott Stallings, who I was impressed with the way he has played. He's one of those younger players making a move coming up in the system, so it'll be really good to see that one. Xander Schauffele and Scotty Scheffler both there in the hunt on Sunday's round was crazy watching all these guys compete. So Adam Scott, hats off to him. He sneaks in to the 30th spot, but now this might all change for now. The top 30 will participate in the Tour Championship this weekend at Lakeland Golf Club in Atlanta. But now with Adam Scott sneaking in the 30th spot, there was some big news that came out today that Will Zalatoris has withdrawn from the Tour Championship as well as the President's Cup. And so does that let Mr. Wise make it in there? Shane Lowry was sitting there at 32nd position. So it'll be interesting to see if PGA replaces him or if they do just 29 guys in the field. We will see with that. So I ask you, sir, with Will Zalatoris coming out, he was the number 3 guy in the FedEx points, number 9 in the world. Who is your favorite to win the Tour Champion?
Now, this is not they have to win by so many points, right? It's just whoever wins this tournament gets it.
All right. And this is the tournament where they start them. So I believe it is Cantlay that is going to end up having the head start with so many pins. So they get.
So they do get.
So Scotty Scheffler will get 10 stroke. He'll have a 10-stroke lead, or he'll be starting at 10 under. Cantlay will start at 9 under. Schauffele, depending on what happens with Zalatoris, whether or not they bump everybody up, Zalatoris would have started at 8 under and show on for the top 10. So, it's a huge thing to have a starting 10 under right away. But who do you like in this field?
That changes a lot because you can't really go too far down the list. But I'm going to go with the guy that I've taken several times. It's worked out for me sometimes. Other times not. Cameron Smith. I think he's 6th in the points right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only going to be a few shots back. I'm okay with that. I'm okay giving a few points with Cameron Smith. He's come up with some big tournaments. So that'll be my guy.
Yeah, he's played unbelievable. But for me, I've got to take the guy that has played probably the hottest over the last 2 months, and that is going to be Xander Schauffele. Xander winning 3 of 10 events over the last 10 stops. He has just been, and it was in contention again this weekend. I think he moves past Cantlay and Scheffler, and both those guys are unbelievable golfers. I think Schauffele just has a little bit more this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a lot of fun sports still going on. Again, local sports going on. Go support local sports if you can. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in the Tribune covering all the other games so we can get them all into the paper, so I can't go out and watch something, but go support local sports. I know Lewiston's out of town and Clarkson isn't started yet, but there's a lot of smaller schools out there. Go check out Lapway. I think that game could be a lot of fun. A lot of fun football and volleyball is getting started. I think most of those teams get their season started on Thursday. Soccer's just got started. It's all kicking off for sure. So go check that out. For us, that's the end of our 96th edition of this show. Again, next week, we might be back in studio. I'm not sure if I'll have access to that room or not. I will let Robert know as soon as I do, hopefully by tomorrow. Or we'll be back here at least for one more week before we get back to our normal schedule. We'll do the AFC and NFC North division. So get your Baltimore Ravens hatred lines ready for next week. It's official. I did win for the 4th straight week for the video games as I won 2-1. So
Who was the two?
Eric and Robert.
No.
And you got Denny. You can go back up and look. But Robert said, where'd it go? Right there. He'd barely give this one to me. Robert said he gives it to me. Denny said you got that one. 2-1 me. 4 straight wins. We'll be back next week with another fun edition of the Honor Sports Report. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out. We had a lot of interaction this week, which always just makes the show even more fun. And I appreciate every single one of you. But for now, that's Robert. I'm Randy. We